Have you ever wondered if raising your kids while you're trying to start a successful real estate business is hurting them or helping them? Well, it actually can be both. And today we're going to hear it right from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We have a great guest with us that can tell us her experience growing up in a real estate family. We have our daughter, McKenzie Damerow, as our guest today. And we're going to have some real, honest talk, the good, the bad, the ugly of growing up around a real estate family. And hopefully she's going to share some good opinions and feelings of what that was like. And we're going to talk about some behind the scenes stuff of really, what it takes trying to juggle family life and keep your business going, because we know real estate is not just a 9 to 5 type of job. So
yeah. So
that's today.
before we get into that fun stuff, let's welcome everybody to our Married to Real Estate podcast, right? We share all of our experiences. We share all of the questions that you guys ask. So that's a great segue to have you guys subscribe, comment, share, like, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify. Just make sure that you turn on your notifications so that when we put out new podcasts, you are notified that they have dropped. All right.
Awesome. So without further ado, welcome, McKenzie. I'll let you give a quick little background about who you are, what you're doing, and then we'll get into some deep questions.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is McKenzie. I am a commercial real estate broker up in the Twin Cities area for Hoyt Properties, where we specialize in industrial sales, leasing, brokerage. Have a history of development, but have predominantly shifted into brokerage. I basically do for businesses what you guys do for families and homes, focusing on the industrial sector, manufacturing companies, distribution companies, et cetera, helping them find a place to lease or a place to buy, and then alternatively helping landlords or owners of the properties sell or lease their buildings.
Lovely. You sound so grown up.
That's pretty cool. I'm
That's all I
starting to
have.
be impressed.
I practiced that for 10 minutes.
Well, it's fun that you're on this podcast with us. Let's talk about you growing up, because real estate was not your first choice for a career, and it's always surprised Dad and I that you ended up being a commercial real estate broker. But let's go back to the beginning and talk about what you thought you were going to do and how you got to where you are. What led to that?
Yeah. So I've always made the joke that I've known what a mortgage was since I was 6 years old. And so I didn't want anything to do with real estate because I grew up around the dinner table listening to you guys talking about deals. And a typical kid didn't want to do what the parents did and wanted to come to my own decision or my own choice. And so initially went to college. As you know, you saw me struggling in the serving waitressing gig, barely making any money. And you thought, why don't you just get your license, just make some calls for us, but it'll pay more than your server job. So I did that. And initially in college was an international business and Spanish major, but came in with some credits and really wanted to graduate early. And I realized that with a double major in that program set, that just was not going to be possible. So frankly, it was laziness a little bit.
Appreciate your honesty.
Made me course correct. So St. Thomas is one of the few schools in the Midwest that actually offers real estate studies as a degree. And I thought that was interesting conversation piece. I knew I was going to go into business in some capacity. I just didn't really know what that meant as far as a actual job or a career post college. And I liked that real estate seemed to be unique. It seemed to embody all aspects of business. So I considered it. And then I went to St. Thomas has two campuses. They have the St. Paul main campus, and then they have the Minneapolis campus, which is mostly for the MBA students. And they had a real estate speaker there who was at the time the CEO of Colliers, which is one of the largest real estate firms in the world. And the CEO at that time was a lady named Jean Kane. And she obviously is a woman, which in commercial real estate and certainly in my real estate program was not very common. I was maybe one of 3 women in my program. And then as far as the The speakers we would have come in, the teachers we had that worked in the field real life, it was all men. So seeing somebody not just as a woman, but being the CEO of one of the largest real estate companies in the world, looking like me, talking like me, looking at business as a relational thing versus a transactional thing, it felt like my path, so to speak, or a way for me to show up authentically in an industry that I, at that point, hadn't really related to until then.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hmm.
So I'm going to go back to what you started talking about. And that was as you're growing up and you're looking at real estate and we're taking phone calls during dinner and, we're, we're at the office sometimes late. We're home working late. Just there is no set schedule, right? So when you think back to growing up in that kind of environment, how do you think that shaped either maybe your mindset or your work ethic, if it did at all?
No, I'm just kidding. No, well, growing up, what I loved and one of the main appeals for me was watching you guys do it because of the flexibility. I understand that you guys feel like you probably never stop working, and that's kind of the question and the root of what you're getting at. But at the end of the day, my experience of it was that you guys were always able to be present. So every soccer game, every school event, you were able to work uniquely around that. Obviously, it's more at that point coming down to what's your priority and what you want to make important to you. But as far as what it taught me, it was work hard, play hard. You know, I saw you guys working really hard and always on, always being on, but having the ability because you've worked hard to get to the point that you were to turn it off when you wanted to turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but to me, that's how I took it.
It does. And it's actually a really good segue. So what you're learning, what you're watching, how do you think that shows up in how you work today?
Well, I think a little bit is my personality, but what it has taught me and allowed me to come to grips with is a big emphasis on work-life balance. Thankfully, I'm in a career where I can really be the dictator of my own schedule and my own day to day. And I know that if I, want to make more, do more deals, then I can put in more time and that translates. And there's not a lot of careers that reward that necessarily. I have a lot of friends that are salaried and they have hour work weeks, and it doesn't matter if they stay an extra 3 hours at the office or leave an extra 3 hours early, right? They make at the end of the day what they make, and their output is their output. Whereas in our industry, it's typically rewarded the more you work at it.
Yep, for sure.
So I want to butt in here because if I don't, then I probably won't get a word in edgewise. But
Like right back home.
So I want to go a little bit off script based on what you just said. And you got into commercial real estate. You have that work-life balance like we have in our residential business, but we've been in our residential business for 28 years. You have not been in your commercial business nearly that long, not even a quarter of that time. And you're seeing the benefits. I want to tell everybody it's not easy, right? I mean, you do have a work-life balance, but you have put in the time, effort, and energy, and you have the mindset to be able to be very highly successful in what you do.
It is different though, residential to commercial. When you talk work-life balance, you're dealing with businesses and people who are working during the work week. Rarely are you fielding calls or doing things with clients on the weekends or evenings typically, that's where residential agents can find it very difficult because you could be taking calls 24/7 if you allowed that. So it is a little bit different.
But that makes it even more interesting that I think people need to realize if that's all true, that means you're busting your hump 5 days a week. So
Yeah.
kind of touch on the fact that it's not easy, right?
No. So a couple of thoughts. First and foremost, one of the biggest difference, and you guys kind of touched on it with commercial versus residential, is the hours. And it's not to say that one sector works more or works less. It's just, like I said, representing families, and most families work some form of an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 5. So it's not to say you guys do nothing during 8 to 5, but your peak hours are what are my off hours, or my low hours. And again, it's not that I don't ever field calls in the evenings or on weekends. There's many brokers and investment people within this industry that'll tell you that the work never stops, that you're on the calls and you're doing what you need to do to get a deal done. But it's really very deal dependent. Obviously, if it's urgent, if something needs to happen, you'll take care of it. But if you get an email late on a Friday or a Saturday morning just because someone's, on their computer that morning and you realize nothing's going to happen between Saturday and Monday at 8 a.m., to me, from a work-life balance standpoint, I'm not answering that email unless I have to, right? In our experience, a lot of stuff like the title companies, the environmental agencies, the groups that we work with, the entities that combine and work together on a deal, they're not doing anything on Sundays or Saturdays. Another thing that's different is the kickstart time. If we're talking from a broker perspective, residentially, not to in any ways minimize what you guys do or to make it sound easier, but theoretically speaking, you could go out and sell a house in a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that with you can, I suppose you could buy a building in all cash, but it's very rare, right? A lot of people are leveraging debt. And then there are a lot of hoops and hurdles that you have to go through if you are doing so with the financial agencies, the environmental agencies, the municipal government agencies for zonings and approvals. There's a lot of things that take time. So when you factor that into income and getting established, the time frame I was told when I got started to get established was 3 to 5 years, which what you would tell an incoming residential agent is if you work hard, your first year will be probably tough, but you could probably get going, I would imagine, year two pretty well if you're dedicated, right? Or it shouldn't take you 3 to 5 years to have a decent year. But that's pretty much expected in our industry. So I used to tell people that I had 3 jobs to have one career. When I started, because I didn't have the ability to live at home with you guys and cut some costs, I had a couple of part-time jobs to pay the bills because you're sometimes going 4 months, 5 months without getting paid. And when you are getting paid, because you're in the infancy of your career, typically it's not huge paychecks. It's small little deals, a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there. But what's really been my saving grace, other than those part-time jobs, is being on a team. And the team is comprised of another gentleman that's about my age and about the same trajectory of his career, and then a senior counterpart who's also part owner in the company. So he's got 25 plus years of business and deals that I get a percentage of. And so that's been somewhat more consistent with my income.
Sure. As a young woman in what you mentioned, a fairly male dominant industry, have you faced any unique hurdles or moments that have really shaped either your confidence or your direction with your career?
Hmm. Initially, when I got into the industry in brokerage, it's recommended that you focus on an asset. And when I say that, I mean there's industrial, there's office, there's multifamily, there's land, there's retail, different subtypes of product, kind of like how you guys maybe focus on an area geographically.
Or farm or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And so I wasn't quite sure which one I wanted to go into. And as you can imagine, different subsets or different assets have different composition of brokers. So retail and office has more women broker in it than you would see in industrial or maybe land. And so when I was deciding which one I wanted to choose, I gravitated towards the personality of the client in industrial more. It resonated with my personality a little more. But obviously, there was a complete lack of people that were in the industry that were women, and certainly a complete lack of young people. So I felt like was not very represented, which was fine. I actually honestly chose it because I liked it. I thought again, as salespeople, we're always looking to make ourselves stand out and to be different. I've had clients tell me that they've chosen to work with me because of that. And I've had the opposite, right? Where that's resulted to where we didn't get the pitch So I've experienced that from a client perspective. I've experienced treatment from other brokers and people within the industry that have been doubtful or just treating you a little differently. But honestly, what's made all the world of a difference in handling that adversity is being on a team that really does celebrate that about me. At the end of the day, they're very confident and have a lot of trust in how I can deliver professionally. And we just use it as our secret weapon, so to speak. We've got the seniority member who's been doing it for forever. We've got Chess, my counterpart, who's more analytically minded. I'd say I'm more people focused and relationship oriented. And I think we've kind of got it tackled from all sides.
So what do you like most about commercial real estate, and what keeps you getting up every day and going into work?
The people that I not just work with at my company, but within the industry. So, like third users and vendors, so architects and general contractors, and certainly some of the clients that I've now been working with for 6+, 7+ years that have become more like friends and family to me. They're great. I really like getting out and touring these spaces. You get to see the behind the scenes of how some of the things that are on the shelves of the stores that we frequent, how they're built and how they get there. Um, I remember one of the most uh, unique things I ever saw. So I had just started, and Steve, my uh, counterpart, decided to let me shadow him on one of the showings, and we went to 100,000+ square foot facility. And at that point, the only thing that I'd seen that was 100,000 square feet was a Walmart. Which, in your mind, you're not thinking about it when you go into a Walmart, but when you're in a big, wide open warehouse of that size, it's hard to comprehend how big that actually is. And we go in there, and there's just machines and conveyor belts and a million plus intricate things happening. And I'm thinking to myself, gosh, this has got to be producing something major. They've got to be manufacturing something really important here. And they were, but it was not what I thought. It ended up being a small little widget that was like this big, but this huge manufacturing facility that was 100,000+ square feet is all dedicated to the production of this thing the size of my pinky nail. And so it it just blows your mind how many ways people can make money and make a living, and how the things that we know today become what they are. So that's the cool part.
Yeah, I remember you sharing stories of one where you had a client where they manufactured women's golf clothing, and then there was a candle place, and then there was a wasn't it like some kind of a sports facility? Like,
Yeah, like the backboard client we have right now, when you shoot a basketball and it kicks the ball back to you, like the
yeah,
rebounding machine. And I think that's what's really cool about industrial is the variety of the client.
yeah,
You can have a med tech company where you could eat off the floors. It's so sterile, and it's technically still an industrial or a warehouse. And then you go to a refinery that, you actually have to put on like a hazmat suit to walk around. Like, there it's just so much variety, and it keeps you on your toes. So when you get
right.
to be out in the field and out touring, that's really what's fun.
What's the most memorable deal and interesting deal that you've had?
I've toured some really scary places. So those have been memorable, but for different reasons. Like out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like that's what they kind of look like. Like you're on a set of like a horror film. It never ceases to amaze me. Two things. It's going to sound silly. Like an Amazon type facility, when they're 40 clear height, 636 clear height, which means they're like 36 feet high, which again, hearing that, you might not think much of it. I certainly didn't until you're standing in it. But when it's 100+ thousand square feet and it's that high, and they've got distribution racking shelves that go the whole length, and you're just like, the immensity of that is really, it's weird. It's weird. You feel like this big. And so those have been cool. But the one that was most memorable to me is I had a guy, he did aerospace defense. So he had contracts with the government. Any CNC machining operation is astoundingly impressive to me, because all of these machines are ran by themselves. They don't necessarily have a person over there standing over it doing it. They're all computer automated, and the facilities are sterile, like every detail is perfectly planned out, and there's light humming and a buzz as you walk through the facility. And you notice the attention to detail and the intricacy is so intentional. And you also realize what they're creating is so secret. I mean, we literally had to sign an NDA to go in there, and it was just an impressive operation.
Bruce, maybe part of your question earlier was that might have been the most memorable facility you toured. What's your most memorable deal that you've done so far and why?
Kind of a lame answer, but it's honestly the truth. Because I think it's a testament to just this industry and being a salesperson in general. One of my first calls ever when I was an intern was to a company out in Blaine, but they're headquartered out of Milwaukee. And I called him and got in touch with the guy, which was kind of a big deal because the CEOs typically don't answer the calls if they are out in a different state. And we immediately connected because I threw out the Milwaukee connection with you, and he thought that was funny. And we are kind of talking about Wisconsin stuff. And ultimately, every time I would talk to him that first year, it was like, nope, not now. Sorry, I don't have anything for you. He would entertain the call, but it was like, no, we don't have anything. I'm not doing anything. No, no, no. And I kept calling, kept calling, kept calling. And I want to say, honestly, it was because I did the deal 3 years ago. So, I mean, probably 5 years of following up with this guy every 4 to 6 months, like I said, and persistently being told no or consistently being told no. And then it was my persistence that ultimately ended up he called me out of the blue and was like, hey, I finally got something for you if you want it. And it was at the time, his building in Blaine was the nicest building that I had ever been able to like sell individually on my own. It was one of the largest buildings. It was super, I think it was built like early 2000s, so it looked really nice. It just had a lot of curb appeal, and I knew it would sell really fast. And it would be one of those listings where the other brokers in our industry would notice it, that it would be a deal that it would be like, okay, so she's playing with a big dog, you know? And it was a company that was national. They had locations all over the country. And so we sold it as expected, and we had a lot of interest in it. And was the deal the biggest deal that I've ever done, or was the deal in any way notable other than just no? But it was the fact that it proved to me that like persistence pays off. People remember you, and you really are in it for the long haul. This is a long game type industry. If you're able to continue to stay at it, chances are it'll pay off.
Mm-hmm. Bruce, talk about that whole point about her calls, like how that is a key to
It
her
was,
success.
she did not get her love or ability to make phone calls from us. I hate
I
to
still
say
don't
that,
love making calls.
but she came work for us making calls, and she just took a list, sat down, make the calls. I mean,
No fear.
no fear. And I will say that at least 90% of the real estate agents that are in business today are not comfortable making phone calls, and they just do it because they're in real estate and they have to, right? McKenzie will do it because she loves talking. She loves talking to people. She has no fear. Doesn't matter if somebody says yes or no. I mean, she just wants to call and talk to them, right? And that
It is a
that
skill
led,
set that is
yeah,
hard.
from
Yeah.
our standpoint, that led to her going to college and making calls to alumni for donations. And she did phenomenal. And it was like no big deal to her. And that's unique. And I was very impressed with that.
Well, I think not only do I see as your parent and someone who is in this industry, I think that is probably one of your strongest skills that you have is that you're not afraid to pick up the phone. You're not afraid to talk to anybody, and you're not afraid of what the outcome is. You're okay with a no, not right now, or a no, not at all. It is what it is. But to piggyback that, you are incredibly articulate. You are very educated. You sound very professional. So those are two of your top skills for sure that have led to your success. But
Agreed.
yeah, so talking about like speaking and being articulate and talking with clients. Have you ever heard yourself say something or be in a conversation and go, oh my gosh, I sound like my mother, or oh my gosh, that sounded just
Yes.
like my dad?
Well, like I said, when I was identifying which asset to go into, I knew that industrial was for me because at the end of the day, I'm not your hoity-toity. I don't want to rub shoulders with the people in the stilettos and the suits. That's just not me. I'm a little more rough around the edges, and I like to be sarcastic and kind of shoot the crap with people. And so when we're on showings and we're out and about, I catch myself leaning more into my personality. And obviously, mom, people say that you and I are sitting images of each other. So I catch myself saying things all the time. Yep, that was Kelly. Bruce, I don't know. I think you rub off on me in ways, but maybe not how I speak.
Not in your personality, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what it is actually. It's I'm
That's
kidding.
funny. Yeah, I certainly didn't ask that to say that I've had influence in like your articulation and your well-spokenness. I'm just saying sometimes the momisms or the dadisms rub off on you, over the years. And like, I remember growing up thinking, oh, I'm never going to be like my mom. And then there she is. From time to time, it comes out and you're like, never thought that would happen. And here it is.
One of the phrases that I say in life, but has come out in my work, which I don't know why, but that I credit to you, is all that in a bucket of chicken. I say that a lot. And a lot of people that aren't from the Midwest, like, they don't know what that is. And I have to explain.
Wow. Well, let's flip this. We talked about your most memorable. We talked about why you're in this business, but let's talk about maybe a moment where you felt really proud of yourself.
Well, it was a deal that was also very rewarding, but it was also because it was with a repeat client of mine that I have really become deeply good friends with. And he's an investor. We started at the same time. And so we kind of have mirrored each other's trajectory and career. But also, it was my largest deal to date, and it was his largest deal to date. So it was a lot of firsts altogether. He had bought a lumber yard up in Big Lake, Minnesota, and it was several buildings that amassed to over 100,000 square feet, or just shy of 100,000 square feet. It was, I want to say, 10 plus minus acres of outside storage land, and it was just over 4.75 million. So it was the transactional volume for this market. That's not a common sale price. There's certainly deals that are much more than that from an industrial sector, but point being, there is the Business Journal up here. They produce, I think, quarterly reports just kind of highlighting top deals, and that one was highlighted in there, which was pretty cool for that quarter. So that one felt fun for various reasons. But additionally, I think we don't typically have ways to be recognized for your work that is traditional to people that are salaried. You'll get raises, or you'll get a position, your title will change or something like that. We don't really have that. So the only thing that we can kind of compare is to be recognized by your peers. And so I was nominated as an emerging leader not that long ago within our community for the entirety of the metro for women, which was really great. I was nominated by my peers as one of the finalists. I think there were like 5 of us for emerging leaders. And I think I was the only one under 30. So that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That's
I'll,
awesome.
I'll say proud mama moment too. I remember this was probably 3 years ago, if not longer. So you were even younger and only maybe 5 years into the business. You were asked to be a panelist for the Women's Commercial Summit. I'm sure that's not the official title.
Yeah. No, it was.
Yeah. And so again, to be asked to be a panelist that young in your career, that's incredibly impressive. And of course, I had to go attend because I had to see it. And you did an amazing job. But I mean, how wonderful to just be on a panel of, first of all, very impressive women to fill out that whole panel. Some with wonderful, impressive careers, some like you just starting out. But boy, you filled some big shoes up there and you did it great. And I was just so impressed.
Hey, quick, you've thrown out a lot of really super interesting stuff and statistics and experiences. And so if you were speaking to a 20-something-year-old person that might be thinking about going into a real estate career, what would you tell them? What would you tell them to look forward to? What would you tell them to look out for? What are the expectations? How
Yeah, I think there's a common misconception in general, not just with young people, that real estate, residential or commercial, you're just like on the golf course, or the people will call you, and they really don't. And you do, at a certain point in your career, have the ability to be fielding your calls and playing with golf with your clients every day. But that's like you're 40 years in, you're 30 years in. Like it's not even remotely close to what the average broker experiences on a day
Wait a
to day.
minute. Weren't you a couple of weeks ago just playing golf with one of your clients?
100%.
Yeah,
And
exactly. Not 40 years in the business either.
I'm looking to change that statistic.
You're such a giver.
It's a sacrifice for the industry that I'm making. But no, I think, and again, I can really only speak commercially, but if you can get past year 3, because that's the hardest. And a lot of people will quit, and understandably so, before year 3. But if you can get past year 3, you'll probably be fine. I would also say who you align yourself with, not just professionally in your network, but on a team, because I would absolutely advocate you be on a team. There are a lot of brokers and teams and companies that really look to profit from you and see you as a lead mule and just a source of generation for them. And they aren't really willing to invest in you. And I think that is going to be the difference between if you can make it past year 3 or not. They have to be willing to not just invest time in you, but also invest money, invest resources in how you advance what you learn, paycheck, like quite literally, like giving part of their commission to you, even if you had nothing to do with that deal. Maybe you just shadowed them. Maybe you were just listening in on the calls. But if you aren't having somebody that's willing to give up their time and their money and their resources to help you succeed, knowing that you will theoretically then pay them back tenfold once you get going, you're going to fail. And then obviously just understanding that you're not going to be making good money probably for quite some time. You got to put the work in first, which is a model that I do think is going to change, to be frank with you. We've had a lot of conversations in the industry about that because it's just not sustainable with the cost of living and the cost of education. So just all of that all together, I think the commission model or the standard commission model is going to go away. The thing that has contributed the most to my success, but was initially something that took a while, was, it's going to sound cheesy, but like really just leaning fully into me and being who I am and understanding that I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. I think initially when you're starting, you want to get every deal because every deal, it feels like the only deal because it is. And you're hell bent on getting everyone not just to like you, but to believe in you, to choose you, to want to work with you, that you're almost kind of willing to self-sacrifice a little bit. And I have learned with some privilege and the ability financially to walk away, being able to recognize that you're not meant to work for everybody and that they're not meant to be your client, and that the ones that, like, your strengths and what makes you uniquely you is going to be the reason why your clients want to continue to use you and refer you. And well, actually, you got to find your niche. So trying not to be everything to everyone is really been hard because you do end up having to not just turn down business, but realize that maybe you don't even make the call, right? It's paid off and it's made me, I think, successful.
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny if everybody hasn't caught on. McKenzie never came to work with us. She did work for us in the summer between college, do some phone calls, and she's had her license since she's been 18 years old, but she never came to work for our business, which I think was a blessing, really, because, we obviously wanted you to do your own thing, figure out your own path. Ultimately, weirdly came back around that you're in real estate, and we're always like, hey, you can come work for us. And she's like, I got this. Don't worry. I'm good.
I really
Even
think you're
weekends.
saving grace was the fact that she didn't want to move back home. There was
No,
nothing that was going to get her to move back home.
Hey, we don't need to
that,
work back home or move back home. You can work up there and be on our team.
right. No, I get it. But it was also like, I really like working in business hours.
Yeah. No, truth. But knowing that you have created your own path here, what does your long-term success look like? What's your dream vision for your career?
Well, I think anybody in the business will tell you that the money and the success is not in the sales, it's in the ownership. Obviously, you can make a crap load of money being a broker, but the long-term wealth is in owning the entities and the assets.
Mhm.
And I've made some really great connections with the other women in the industry, and not necessarily brokers, some, but most being in the architectural roles and the GC roles. So they know the real estate process, they know people that are buying and selling, and we've formed these networking groups where we've talked about how a lot of the investing in this industry is done by men. And we as women want to be involved in that. We think that there's a component of financial literacy that we can look to try to pass down to new generations coming in that can really change the game. And women are becoming more and more resourced. And historically speaking, one of the most agile times to be a woman. We're probably the most educated. We're probably the most wealthy at this point, like across the board, right? So we can use those resources in ways that we maybe never have. And so the whole initiative of these groups of women coming together is to find a way for us to pool all of our time and our distinct skill sets. Like how can we all pool our stuff together and our networks and our knowledge and our funds to start investing together to build some long-term wealth. I think it would be a really wonderful thing to encourage not just women, but other minorities to get involved in the wealth accumulation of real estate. Because really, historically, it's predominantly been for white males.
Mhm. Yeah. The fastest way to build your own personal wealth is by owning real estate. I mean, you can rent and rent and rent, and you're making somebody else rich, right? The way for you to build your own wealth is to own. So that's exactly what you're saying on a commercial standpoint, too. Every day, you've got to show up to do your work to make that money. But if you can own and build that passive income stream, that's really the long-term game.
Right. Yeah. So my long-term goal is to not have to work. That would be lovely.
Hey, get in line,
That's
kid.
what I'm
Get
trying
in
to
line.
do.
When you talked about commercial real estate potentially changing, where do you see it going? How do you think things are going to change?
Well, the thing they've been throwing around for a while, not just economically, but also because of the influx of technology and AI, is are we going to shift more towards like a consultant based industry? I don't know. There's always two sides to the argument. You don't need us, right? Like as far as the logistics of a purchase goes, some people might view us as a glorified door opener to a property. We've even seen it, clients not including lawyers in acquisitions because they have AI generate their purchase agreement or review their lease document, and they think that that's flawless. And I understand that it's going to continue to get better over time, but we'll have attorneys then review this AI generated lease document or the purchase agreement, and there are flaws, there are issues, right? There are things that it misses, or things that it's not quite right. So I do think that it's kind of cyclical, and there is obviously a need and a push for technology in our industry, and it's helpful for sure. But I think too much of a good thing is a bad thing, and there is still very much so a human component to all of this, especially when we put it in a commercial lens dealing with millions of dollars as far as these typical asset values are. People are going to want to talk to a person about
For sure.
what's going on in the market. I think especially too about the people that are running second and third generation manufacturing plants, and people that this is more emotional to them than just an Amazon facility, right? Like this is like their family business. And I can't fathom thinking about the people that I work with and how old school they are in a lot of ways, that they're going to trust just a computer to help them do this, right? And I get that, like, they will obviously phase out and new generation will come into positions of leadership, and some of that old school thinking might go to the wayside. Our role is going to change, but I think the elimination of our role is not that's going to happen.
People need people.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you, because we use a lot of AI in our business, and it's not going to take over the personal side. I mean, if for nothing else, we are still the gatekeepers for the correct information, right? Because AI hallucinates. And for those that aren't familiar with hallucinations with AI does not tell the truth a lot. AI will give you false answers because it knows it's being monitored, and it doesn't want to get caught. So I don't think we're ever going to go away, but I do agree with you that our roles could change a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and they should.
Yeah. They could get easier for what we're doing, but that doesn't mean it's less valuable, right?
Yeah. I think for me, it's really very simple. It boils down to one thing and one thing only, which is, unless there are AI generated businesses that are entirely running businesses without people, it's just it's completely technology. Business, commercial, I mean, the big thing with commercial versus residential is they want to say that there's less emotion, right? Well, but the reality is that every business I know of is ran by people, and people are inherently emotional. And yes, okay, in theory, there's less emotion, it's just business, but it's never just business. These are sometimes third, fourth generation businesses, and there is an emotional tie there. And that's something that AI, I don't think, can properly accredit for. And there's just a level of understanding there with the negotiations, with deal progression, that a human element is not only necessary, but is the most effective.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
All right. We'll wrap it up on that note.
Yes.
It's probably not been an easy road growing up around us always flying by the seat of our pants. And hopefully you've taken some of the good, the bad, the whatever, and used it to your advantage. And obviously you are incredibly successful in your own right. So we are so proud of you and so excited to see where you're headed in your career. And I truly hope ownership is a big component of that. So get after it. But thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Love you. Love you. Love you.
Thank you. Well, wait, now I feel like you've been blowing me up. I gotta put it right back. Thank you both for being such tremendous role models and showing me that business, because you both are very different business people, can look and be successful in a lot of different ways. And you've really paved the path for me to forge my own path. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, honey.
Thank you. Don't make me cry.
With that note, we will thank everybody for tuning in today. But we encourage you guys to please subscribe, turn on your notifications so you know when our next podcast drops. Maybe you're a real estate person raising your own kids, or maybe you are a child of a real estate family and have some fun stories or comments. We'd love for you to share those. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on our next episode.
See you later. Thanks, Kenzie.
Bye. Thank you.